Mark was the leader of the Eastham Hiking Club for 15 years.
One of the leaders for that one, yeah.
Yeah, so he gets around. He's a great speaker, and so with no further ado, I want to welcome Mark.
Okay. Well, thank you, Julie, and welcome everybody. I'd like to introduce my wife, Patty, who's been my partner, and a lot of there she is over there. Okay. As Julie mentioned, my name is Mark McGrath. I was born in the Boston area, spent most of my childhood there. I went away to college and then worked for a big glue company and for 30 years. And then as we were about to retire, Patty and I were discussing this, and where do we want to live? We wanted to get out of Connecticut where we were staying, where we lived for 30 years and brought up the kids. So we said, well, why don't we settle someplace where the kids will come and visit us? And hence, we've spent the last 23 years on Cape Cod. And when we came to Cape Cod, we wanted to be active. We were younger, so we joined newcomers and hiking clubs. And I joined the Eastham Hiking Club. And that was just a breath of fresh air. You know, get out every Wednesday and hike to different places. It was just a wonderful experience. And now I'm the hiking leader emeritus, kind of term I use. And here's one of the leaders in Eastham Hiking Club, Susan Goodspeed. And that led to a lot of different activities. One of which, on one of these hikes, we were hiking just across the street, and the leader who was there said, oh, and this used to be a golf course. And I said, well, I kind of knew that because there was a green roller down near the marsh. And he was reading from his notes, and he said, and Bobby Jones and Francis Ouimet played here. Well, how many have heard of those fellows? Oh, yeah. Bobby Jones might have been the all-time best golfer. And Francis Ouimet, well, we'll get into that. And I said, I have to find out more about this story. So I went to the National Park historian, and I said, I want to find out more about that golf course. With two golfers like Ouimet and Jones playing there, I want to know more. And Bill Burke, the National Park historian, said, well, I can't tell you much. Why don't you go see Don Sparrow? And Don Sparrow was an Eastham legend. And I talked to Don, and he knew everything about the course. And I'll give you a little bit of Don's background. You know, this, just an aside. From when I saw Don's notes about Jones and Ouimet, you know, I thought I'll just find out a few more things. But if you ever had something just explode, and you find out something else and find out something else, and then it becomes the whole story and part of your life for a while until you dig into this. So from that one chance sentence of Don's life, it just exploded, and we'll talk about that now. Well, getting back to Don Sparrow. Don Sparrow was 90 at the time, and he told me his life story, which was fascinating. He grew up as a farm boy in a house just down the road off to the right. It's been torn down, it just fell apart. But he had 3 brothers, and mother and father lived there. And they were farmers. And they grew 2 crops. Anybody know? One is famous.
Turnip and asparagus.
Turnip and asparagus. And one of the times I felt, you know, I've been privileged so far, I felt put upon was I read a story about those crops. And Eastham said, the turnips are for the Irish, the asparagus are for the English. And I said, what? Now that is just a tiny sliver of being put upon, but I just never initial shock at me. And the thing about Dawn, when we were talking about asparagus and turnip, I'd say, well, when did you pick asparagus? And when did you pick it? You don't pick asparagus, you cut it. How about turnips?
Pull.
You pull them. And I could never get through my head, but every time I said it, it'd pick me up on it and mark that. Well, Don's career, after he was pulling asparagus and pulling turnips and cutting asparagus, he went to the local school. And they had 2 grades together at a time, like first and second were in. Were you in that, Kathy?
No,
You've read about it.
I just know.
And then the 5th and 6th were together. But when he was in the 5th grade, he was always listening to the 6th grade lesson. So as a result, he got 2 double promotions and graduated from high school at 15 or so. And then Mr. Luce, who lives in the house that's on the promontory out there, when you're coming up Route 6, you look down a driveway, a long, skinny driveway, and it has a fence across it a lot of times. Well, Mr. Luce is. He was the headmaster of Phillips Andover. And he took a liking to Dawn and said, Dawn, you're going to Phillips Andover. And Dawn said, yes, I did, and I was totally unprepared, and I flunked French, so they made me take another year. But that other year he studied more, and of course he got into Harvard. And he majored in chemistry in Harvard.
Wow.
And then he graduated from Harvard, and he went to MIT to get his master's in engineering. And then he had a marvelous career going around the country, going around the world as a consultant. And then he retired back to Eastham here, and he lived just down the street for, I don't know, 25 years in his retirement. Became selectman, became all kinds of things. He taught, he gave speeches, he gave lead hikes and so forth. So he was just a fabulous man. I will tell one other story about Don. He was in his 90s, and Hortense Kelly. And he had nods on Hortense Kelly. She was 90 also. And she was the leader of Eastham Hiking Club for a number of years. And we got them together one time for lunch. And Patty, being Patty, tried to fix them up. And they were both a delightful couple. And Hortense finally said, hey, Dawn, you'll have to come over to my house and see my garden. And Dawn said, Hortense, you'll have to come to my house and see my etchings. Yeah. It would have been a couple, because he wasn't very mobile, but he had a sharp mind and a memory, and he could drive a car. Hortense, on the other hand, was going blind. She didn't have a very good memory, so compatibility were there, but I don't know, maybe Patty didn't do her job very well. But that's Don. So I sat down with Don. He'd invite me over to his living room, and again, this is one of those things that would just explode, and never envisioned this. And he'd tell stories. He'd tell me about the golf course. He'd offer me a glass of bourbon, which we drank and he liked. And then at 90-something, he would quote fairly long passages of Shakespeare. And who's the Jabberwocky guy? He loved Jabberwocky. Nonsense talk. Who? Okay. And so he was just a fun guy, and he talked about the construction of the golf course. Now, his father worked, I have to back up a bit. This whole land was owned by a very wealthy gentleman, Quincy Adams Shaw. The Shaw family went back generations, and this is one of the guys that was one of the descendants. And for a while, Quincy Adams Shaw went to Harvard, NCAA doubles champion, singles champion in tennis, and quite an athlete, but he liked to drink quite a bit. And he liked female companionship, so he had about 4 marriages. And he was in McLean Hospital with a mental issue for 10 years. And when it was time for him to get out, the doctor talked to his father and him and said, well, if you want to stay out of here and not come back, what I suggest you do is find a hobby and a passion that will consume your entire time and it will never end. He said, I'll build a golf course. They owned the land down here. He owned quite a bit of tract down on the marsh and the pond. So he hired Don Sparrow's father to do the building. His mother turned out to be the caddy master. And the 4 sons were all caddies. And Don Sparrow was one of them. So they built the course, took them 3 years, and then it became a golf course that Quincy Adams Shaw, it wasn't a public course, it wasn't a private course, because a private club has members. He didn't want any members. This was his personal golf course. And the only way you got to play it was to be a very good friend of Quincy Adams Shaw. And we'll see why in a bit. So that's a background of the course. And what I'll do, I don't know if we have all of the slides in this system, but we'll go through some of these. Now this was the original map of the golf course that was laid out. Here's Salt Pond, which is right out in the back of the visitor center. And there was an inlet, and it goes out to Nauset Bay, and all the holes, they were spread throughout here. It was a 6,400 yard course, which is a good test of golf, so that's quite a golf course. Okay, Julie. Now what I did, this is just one of the holes that was on that map. Here's Quincy Adams Shaw house. Right out the front door was, I guess the front faces the ocean, the back faces the way. So this is out the back door. First hole, 210 yards up to the green here, there's a garage there. And what I did was color those in and put them on computer transparency. That I could then take that transparency of the green and brown, and the next slide, like that, and the next one, and then put it on top of Google Earth, as it is today. So this is the first hole, as where the layout of the first hole is right here, and you can see it's all covered with woods now, and the next slide. And then you do that 18 times, and that is on today's ground where the entire course was. Okay. And for some more information, here's the walking path from the visitor center down to the Coast Guard station. This is it. So if you take that today, you walk right by the 6th green, cross the 1st green, cross the 5th green, and on down. And the next slide. And I tried to find out where they were specifically and what it looks like today. So this is, all this pink stuff is my walking and looking for stuff. Okay, the next one. And it looked like I might have found a trap here, a flat area that might have been a green, another trap. So they don't quite coincide with what this shows. But it was fun trying to do. The next one. Okay, the property now is owned by a descendant of Quincy Adams Shaw. And you'll see that sign as you drive down towards the beach. And the hiking trail crosses over that, but you never see the house.
You want to keep going? Sorry, I was just trying to get that cord out of your way.
Oh, okay. So here's Here's a walk you can take. I've taken a number of times. You come up from Fort Hill and you come up and around this part, around the oyster pond with the visitor center right here, back down, and these are all the hiking trails as they go across the land. And in orange is private property area now. Oh, and down here is the fire station and police station. That's on Route 6. Here's Route 6. You can see that, and that was the 12th, 15th, and 13th holes. Okay. And this is just a great walk that you can do from Fort Hill up here, over the Coast Guard Station, get down to see where, a lot of other areas. Okay. Oh, I don't know what that's. As a side, like Patty and I, 10 years ago, walked around the perimeter of Cape Cod. And entirely on the beach, and when we came to a river, we swam across it. And I don't know, but that looks like we were half done when I just like snuck in there. Go ahead. Dude, give us another one. Oh, let's look at some of the holes. Okay, that's the first hole that we talked about. The next one. They had Fairchild camera or airplanes were noted photographers back in the 20s, the 1920s. And this comes from their file. And somebody tried to do some history on it and reproduce those. And they went to Fairchild and said, "You took this picture, can I make a copy of it?" And Fairchild said, "I have no idea where it is. Just go ahead and do it." Okay, that's on the first tee. In the previous slide, it showed a nice vacant fairway from the first tee up past the barn, over some rough here to the green. And now it looks like this. Okay, another one. And there's another roller. And if I was to play that par 3, boy, I'd probably hit a 3-wood, try to hit it over those trees. And there's Dawn. Dawn was a caddy. In fact, Dawn had an 80-year career as a caddy. He started when he was 13, and he was caddying for us when he was 90. Okay, that's where the first green was. Okay.
You want to go back one? Or no?
Now this is kind of jumping around. But what we did, I came out here with some friends and said, now that I know where the course is, I have to play it. You know, it doesn't do any good just to understand where it is. So we had a 2013, the Dawn Sparrow Cedar Bank Links Open Championship. And Francis, we met one in 1935. Okay. That is Harry Varden. I don't know why he's here. Give us another.
He looks like a golfer.
Oh, okay.
He looks like a golfer.
That's what it is. Harry Varden was the British champion, the all-time winner of the British Open. He won it 6 times. And he came over here to play in the U.S. Open. Okay, next slide. So we took Harry Varden there and said, if we're going to play this course, we should at least look a little bit like him. So I had my oldest clubs. He has his oldest clubs. Few of us have hats on. And there's Dawn Sparrow, our caddy. Okay.
You had a token woman in there too?
Hey, what?
A woman?
Yeah, that's Patty,
Oh,
my wife.
She got to play too?
So of course. She's my golf partner. And there's Dawn giving Jim Ferry some advice on how to play how to play the hole. Next. We wanted to play the 9th hole. Now, the 9th hole is the visitor center. And still to this day, you can see a little swamp down just as you come out of the parking lot. and that's the swamp there. Well, we couldn't play from the middle of the swamp, so we decided to play a temporary tee up here. And the green was right at the front door of the visitor center. So that's an easy course, easy hole to play. Okay, next slide. From the temporary tee, that's what the fairway looks like.
Isn't that funny?
Well, I thought we got there early enough to play up the fairway, but we didn't. We came back the next day. So there we are. Oh, there's Tom's got a good swing. Oh, here's Patty. Come on, Patty, hit it good.
Trick shot.
She had heels on, though, it doesn't count.
Nice swing.
Okay. The ball goes a long way when you're hitting on cement.
Just keeps rolling.
Okay, next slide. And then we had to take preferred lives off the parking lot and find the closest bit of grass. And then, okay, the next slide. And then when we got to the green, Dawn was holding the flag there, and we were putting out. Okay. Well, first of all, when we first started to play the hole, and there were cars there, a ranger came up to us and said, "What are you doing here?" "Well, we're playing golf." Do you have a permit to play?"
Oh, jeez.
I said, "No, we don't have a permit to play this one hole." But then when we got to the green, that's Bill Burke. And I didn't tell Bill we were playing, and he walked up and said, "What are you guys doing here?" I said, "Well, Don Sparrow's here. We're playing the course." And Bill looked at me and said, "Take my picture with Don Sparrow." So Bill he started me on the project, and I think that picture is still in his office with Don tending the pin. Okay, the next one. And there it is, we're paying Don his usual fee. It was 50 cents a bag, and if he carried 2 bags, that was $1 for 9 holes. And there's Dawn, and the next one. And we went to the Chocolate Sparrow to celebrate. Now, it was Dawn's daughter and her husband who owned the Chocolate Sparrow for many years. So it's kind of a nice ending.
Yes, I have to remember that.
Okay. Okay. We already played one hole. Let's play a couple more holes.
Keep going.
Okay. There's a hole, well, here's the old loose house with the long drive. This is the long driveway from Route 6. Okay, the next slide.
No, it's right.
It's a par 3, number 14. And here's the loose house up here. That's the picture of the loose house. And Cedar Bank Links sign there. With a golf cart. Okay. And here's what the hole looks like from the house. And if you ever do this walk around the inlet there, you might find some golf balls. Well, the owner has a rack of clubs here with balls, and people just hit them, and sometimes they get out into the river. Okay, next. Just a gorgeous view.
Yeah.
Next. And you recognize that's kind of an iconic boathouse there. With the green is just tucked up behind the trees there. Oh, that's the Richardson house. This is another digression. The Richardson house is owned by the family of Elliot Richardson, who is one of 2 people who had 4 cabinet posts in his life. He was Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, Secretary of Commerce, Attorney General, and that's the family house. And there's another story that's a little bit of a stretch. I call it historical fiction. It's fiction, but I can pile it with some facts. There's a house, if you go down to the beach, and just before you take a right and go up the hill, if you look to the left, there's a small house.
On the cliff.
And that supposedly was the VIP house. So if anybody in Washington wanted to come and see the park, well, that house was available to them. And another rumor or story that somebody who had an FBI agent as a father and said that visitor's house was where Hal Haldeman, Ehrlichman, and Mitchell went to plan the Nixon Saturday Night Massacre or whatever.
Watergate break.
So my stretch of the imagination is, are those head nods or disbelief?
Yeah.
No, there's a writer, O'Brien, and another, trying to think of his name, he's head of the, and anyways, he wrote a story about the fact that they were aware, it came in on the Cape Cod, that they were privy to the fact that these guys were visiting here at the Watergate.
Oh, okay, okay.
Going on, so that's pretty much documented.
And my extension to that was, Elliot Richard he could have been in that house, and he could have got on his bike and rode down to the end of the road, took a right, seen 3 guys in the VIP house. I wonder what they're doing. Well, they were plotting to fire him. And Richardson finally, when Watergate came to a bubble, Nixon said, fire Archibald Cox, who was a special prosecutor. And Richardson said, no, I resign. So he came out looking good on this. And it's nice to know that he could have been riding his bike and seeing him having that plan. Okay, that's a digression. Next. Okay, this is Jay. I'm about where the T was, and there's the hole up there. Come on, Jay, put it on the green. Okay, next. Okay, it's Hank with the loose house in the background. Okay, next. Next. Next.
That's great.
Next. There we go. Next.
Okay.
Okay. Then another hole, which was the 11th. Here's the visitor center. You came down here with the 10th, and the 11th, you teed off on this side, and you hit the ball to the green on the other side of the inlet. Okay. Now back in Francis Ouimet, they didn't have a bridge.
No.
Next. How did they get there? 11 holes, 140 yards. Okay. What they did in those days was they had a scow that was big enough to carry, I don't know, 8 people, or they made 2 trips. And you came down, hopped in the boat, and there was a clothesline over the thing, and they pulled themselves across to get to the green. And then they'd play 4 holes up there, and they'd come back here and pull themselves the other way. Okay. Oh, there's my shot. Next.
One in, one out.
And there was we had to have Jay bring a boat so we could recreate this getting across the river. And Hank here, he's far more interested in the conversation going over here. Okay. Okay, next one.
That's wonderful.
When I get over there to find my ball, that's the shellfish warden in Eastham. And he said, this is the one Saturday a month when we open up the oyster beds to have the citizens of Orleans or Eastham come and collect some of the oysters. And he said, what are you hitting golf balls into? Well, he was the nice guy, told the story, and he was a nice guy. The next slide. And there we are. There was all of the oyster equipment, and Hank's just putting out. And, okay. Now that's the look from the tee. across the water, as it is today. And I'm trying to find the green. I didn't think this was in here. This was in the, okay, next one. And there's John Sparrow. He's on the green sending the pin. Okay. Now the Cedar Bank champion is Jay Kennedy. He's the guy that had the boat. So we had to do that for Jay.
Had to win.
Okay. Now, on the more serious side, some of the holes here were truly spectacular, and I hope we get into that with some of the others. Let's take a look at some of them. This is the 10th hole, right in front of the visitor center, wraps around here.
Wow.
So as a golfer, how much are you going to cut off? You're going to hit here and have a long second shot, or try to cut the corner and get down here and be close to the green. So it was kind of a real challenge to play that hole. And it was 415 yards. This is the look from the visitor center. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, right outside the visitor center was the 10th tee that wraps around the bay and comes over here. There's the 11th green, and the 14th green that we played is up on top there. So from right in back of the visitor center, you can see what it looks like now and kind of picture that. And there's the 10th hole. Okay.
That's great.
Oh, another one was the 17th. Again, you tee off on this side, hit it down here, and then into the green. Now, if you take the walking path down from the visitor center, it goes around here, and you can see a little mound that was around the green, the way they kept the balls from rolling off into the woods. They just built a little mound, and you can still see that mound there. It's not very noticeable. There's part of it, same hole. Okay. Okay. Now the 18th. The reason this was probably a personal course was here is Quincy Adams Shaw's house. Right outside the house, on the back side, was the first tee that went up. We talked about that before. You go up there and you play down here and you come to the 3rd green, which is right at his front door. Then you go off and you play. And then the 18th hole comes in right at the back of the house. So if you own that house, you're not interested in having all of those people that are playing golf wandering around your property. And besides, I had an opportunity, Austin Smith, who owns it, invited Dawn and myself in to look at the house. And when they finished the 3rd hole, I think they said, time for a drink. And with their golf shoes, their steel spike shoes, they would walk all around the house. And all of those spike marks are still in the wooden floor. So they'd have a drink there and come back and probably wind up there for 18. Okay, there's the Fairchild picture of the house. Okay. And there's as it is today. And Dawn's on the 3rd green. He's just all over the place caddying. And that's what the house looks like today. Okay. Oh, and here's a picture of the living room. You can't see the spike marks on the wooden floor. But that's Austin Smith. And you can tell the age of the house because this black mark on the ceiling was from the oil-burning lanterns in the older days that he hasn't painted. Maybe that's some history. Okay. And there's Dawn and Austin Smith. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Sparrow Senior laid out the course. Who designed it? It seems devilish.
Quincy Adams Shaw was the whole man there. And maybe the rumor was that Francis Ouimet might have given him some ideas. But Quincy Adams Shaw was a smart guy, Harvard and good athlete, so, and here was his land. That brings up another point, though. They started building it in 1925, and it was completed in 1928. Now, the course went all over the place, including it went through Elliot Richardson's backyard. So from 1928, they played a full 18 holes. He had lots of parties. It was just a great place. But in 1935, the Richardsons said, you can't put your course across our property anymore. So in 1935, they had to cut back on it. It turned into a 9-hole course, maybe a few more, maybe 14 holes or something. But it wasn't the original 18-hole championship course. And then it kind of went fallow, and people were still playing it late, but then the National Park took over all of this property in 1962, and then it just went on. So all traces of it left. Any other questions?
Sir?
Yeah.
How was it that Bobby Jones, and I've also heard Babe Ruth, came to play on the course? This gentleman's private donation.
Yeah, that's it. Well, first of all, Quincy Adams Shaw, the Shaws were they paid more taxes to Massachusetts than anybody else. So just the name Shaw, got doors open. He was also a member of the country club in Brookline. So, they could have met up there because Francis Ouimet was obviously a member there, and Quincy Adams Shaw was, so maybe come down for a weekend. And there's another, I forget the guy's name. Next to the Richardson house was, I forget the names, a gentleman who was president of the USGA, United States Golf Association. And 20 years later, his son took over that job. So maybe that connection between the president of the USGA, who lived right beside Shaw, and Bobby Jones facilitated that. Francis Ouimet, according to Don Sparrow, he was down here quite a bit. Bobby Jones came once, but Francis Ouimet was a regular part of their group. Yeah.
Do you know what year Bobby Jones played here?
Pardon me?
Do you know what year Bobby Jones played?
No. Sometime between 25 and...
Or it changed from 18 to 14?
Yeah, I don't know. I did have, I don't know if we're going to show it here, but I did have a slide. The Saturday Golf Group had a big book like this that they could turn and put today's tournament's results there. And there is one page devoted to Bobby Jones and Francis Ouimet playing with a third. It's not dated though. And it might be, the accuracy might be somewhat suspect. They both shot a 72. Now, was that a coincidence or whatever, but I don't have to say anything else. Yeah.
For Shaw, was it a therapeutic success?
Yes. It was a therapeutic success. Yep.
I think one point that should be mentioned is there weren't any trees then.
Right, there were no trees then. That is correct. That made it a lot easier to put in the book. Thank you.
So, I don't think you said this at the beginning. What made you so interested to do the research that even Bill Burke didn't have the history of? Why were you so interested in this?
I'm a golfer.
Yeah.
And when I heard Jones and Francis Ouimet, those names, and I'm retired, I just said, I have to find out more about this stuff. Dan Wexler was a noted golf writer. Dan Wexler wrote a book, Lost Links, that were what are the most famous or best golf courses in the country that had the day and they no longer exist. Well, Cedar Bank Links is one of them that was in his books. And he writes a nice story about it. In fact, some of this is talk I was just giving is part of that. Next one. and quoting from the book, Cedar Bank Link would surely be among the most talked about courses in New England, not so much for its overall challenge, but rather for its marvelous setting, unique history, and conspicuous cachet of all-world holes.
All world hope.
Okay, there was some videos about it. Okay, keep going. Next. That's an article Don Sparrow wrote for Cape Cod, of that last one. And this is Don Sparrow's growing up on Cape Cod. He wrote 5 books in his retirement. And this is his first one, 4 Brothers Learning to Stand Tall. Just another sidelight. You're having a bourbon with Don and said, gee, I had a call from my brother Wilbur the other day. But all he wanted to do was find out how much money I have. And Wilbur thought he had more money than, they never resolved that. Okay. One of the finest natural layouts in the world, Boston Evening Transcript. Oh, and here's a picture of Quincy Adams Shaw, Francis Ouimet, and Bobby Jones. And I don't know who the third guy is.
Rodney Brown,
Yeah.
Ouimet had some
somebody you didn't know.
Okay.
His ears.
And there's I think that's, I don't know which one is Francis, but that's definitely Bobby Jones over there. Okay, next. And these are the caddies. And there are the 4 Sparrow boys, and Dawn was the youngest. And there's the Fairchild layout. Sparrow gets from and so forth.
Oh my God,
Kind of
look
Irish.
at that. Look at how,
Next. And here's a layout of the holes. And each one of these means something, but number 15 is my house. And where it got that name is I mentioned Mr. Luce, who was the headmaster at Exeter, Philip Andover. And during the Depression, he didn't do very well in the stock market and he was losing it. So Quincy Adams Shaw said, you can stay in there. But he named the hole that went across the property, my house. Okay. And we get that. Oh, okay.
We can go back.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
That's to be invited. You had to write a letter and so forth. Go ahead. Okay, this is the school book that they kept, and that's the golf club that we might talk about. Okay, there it is, the different players. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, Jax, I think was his name, the president of the USGA. In fact, that one of the roads over there might be named after him, Jax. Go ahead. And here's Jones and Ouimet. 36, 35, 35, 30. They both get 72s. Okay. A little bit about the 2 golfers. Francis Ouimet, 2013 US Open will be the 100th anniversary. His winning it. Francis won the Open as a 20-year-old and 2 caddies. I saw an article that just got my attention. That of the 20 most impossible victories in sports, Francis Ouimet winning the 13 Open was number 3 on that list. He was beat out by the 60 or 80 Olympic team and some blind man that could climb Mount Everest. But Ouimet was an American. At the time, golf was dominated by the British. Ouimet was an unknown. Short time prior to this, he was just a caddy. And the U.S. had no public courses for people to learn on.
oh, no public courses.
There's Francis. And there he is in years later. Okay. There's his caddy. Talked about. And there is the 2 British people. They went into a 3-way playoff. Francis won it. And there's Harry Barden and Mr. Ray on the right. Francis Ouimet became a prominent businessman. He went on to win 2 American amateur titles and became the Gates moved to my ambassador next. Okay, Bobby Jones. Grand Slam. He won 13 majors, but he retired at 28. There wasn't a whole lot of money in it, and I think he went to Hollywood. Look at the US Opens. He was in 11 of them. First 4 times, second 3 times, the 5th, 8th, and 11th. So he did quite well. US Amateur, 13. He had 5 wins, couple of seconds, semifinal, semifinal. British Open, he played in it 3 times and won every time he went over. And British Amateur, he won 1 of those, and he retired.
20.
Okay, next. This is Bobby Jones's swing. It is classic.
Wow. Wow. Holy mackerel. Quite an arc. Woo. Wow, look at that. He put his all into it.
260 yards.
It's the end.
Okay.
Slide.
Okay, that's good, I think. I don't know what we missed. I think that covers it.